Hi guys, Freddy here. Welcome back for another modern RPG, as I haven't found a better name for the series than that yet. Now, this time I'm going to be covering the Terminator Quick Start rules. Now, this is very different to anything I usually cover. I don't tend to go for modern RPGs much, and I don't tend to go for Quick Start rules, as it's not a full rulebook. But this intrigued me for two reasons. First of all, it's the Terminator, and if you can't think of role-playing possibilities with the Terminator background, whether you're running a current-day scenario with Terminators coming back to do something, or a future scenario where you're members of the Resistance fighting the Terminator army and you've got plasma weapons and all that, I don't know what you're doing games mastering, because there's a lot of great ideas in there. But secondly, this is by Nightfall Games. Now, I've mentioned Nightfall Games before because they're the publishers of Slay Industries, and they're a local company. They were first founded in Paisley in Scotland, which is about 20 miles in that direction, where I went to university. So I'm very familiar with the town, and there was a certain tone to Slay Industries which I thought was very West Scottish and very 80s, 90s. Which, of course, meshed well with me, being from that area and of that age. But they've moved, and they're now based in Cumnock, or at least their headquarters is, which is 20 miles in that direction. So they've kind of passed me by, heading out into the countryside. And I'm intrigued to see what they're doing now. They haven't really published a lot new. I know they did with a second edition of Slay Industries, but this is, as far as I know, the first new game they've published in 20 years. So let's go over to the desktop and have a look at the rules. So here we are with the Terminator RPG Quick Start rules, beta version 1. And these are available from DriveThruRPG. Now, because they're Quick Start rules, they're offering them on a pay-what-you-want term. So if you want to contribute to the project, give them $5, give them $1, whatever it is, it will help them do the project. But if you just want to look, you can put in $0 and get these free of charge. So they're definitely worth a look no matter what you want to pay. Now, it's a very nice cover image. That's a very detailed picture of a Terminator T-800 endoskeleton. You can even make out the hatch on the head where they swapped out the processor in Terminator 2. It's very nice. It's perhaps a bit cliched. There's lots of images of Terminator endoskeletons on fire. I think I might have preferred a darker image because it's a very dark setting. But I can't criticize too heavily. It's a lovely, lovely image, especially considering we're not going to see many images as we flick through. So we've got an intro page, just with the Nightfall Games logo, who the writing are. Nightfall Games are Dave Alsop, Jared Earl, and Mark Rapson, and Mark Rapson's one of the ones involved in the writing of this. Quick Start rules. We've got an introduction, Los Angeles 2029 AD, the very intro from the first Terminator movie. And then we've got what is a role-playing game about the Terminator RPG. Quick Start rules, hacking rules, because this is where you're dealing with machines, you're dealing with Skynet, you're dealing with Terminators. So being able to reprogram them is an element of the game. Now, we'll come to that as we go along. The system itself is a D10 based system. You need 66. We've got the stats here: strength, dexterity, knowledge, concentration, charisma, cool, and fate. Various stat ranks from 0 to 6. Then we've got skills with skill ranks, which are 1 to 4 for a sort of starting character, or you can take it up as high as your attribute. Your attribute in Terminator acts as the cap on your skill levels. So we've got strength skills, which are climbing, endurance, melee weapons, support weapons, and armed combat. Dexterity skills, athletics, pistol, rifle, stealth. Knowledge skills, computer, education, forensics, law, medical, streetwise, time science, and so on and so forth. I won't go through all the skills. Now, these are based on a system where you're rolling a number of dice based on your skill against a target number. We can see the target numbers here. So simple tasks are a 4 or higher, challenging a 7 or higher, complex 10, strenuous 13, insane difficulty 16. So if you've got a skill of 4 dice, you're rolling 4d10, average around 20, so you're going to succeed in most insane tasks. But there's no guarantee of that. What else we got here? Increasing difficulties, unskilled characters. We've basically just got a lot of rules here. How fate points work. Basically, you can re-roll the success dice, re-roll any or all of the skill dice. Multiple points of fate may be spent after a roll to add a +1 modifier to the success die per point of fate spent. We've got fear here, fear ratings, fear tests, because obviously big powerful Terminators coming at you is pretty scary, so people cowering and being petrified is an element here. We can see the results. If you're afraid, they do not fade after an hour and will instead remain until the character's willpower has risen to 10 or more. Directors should consider increasing the difficulty of skill tests. Petrified, freeze, must act last in each round of combat, or flee, director's discretion. Terrified, apply a -3 modifier to all charisma-rated skill rolls, and as your -1 cool for the duration of the fear effect. And crippled, character may not act and is reduced to screaming, tears, or passes out. And you've got your willpower there. It goes through details of combat. Initiative for groups, combat rounds, all the standard kind of rules here. Now you've noticed that although there's a bit of a header on each page, there's not really any images. It would have been nice, especially as you're basing your game on a series of movies, surely just screen captures, pictures of people shooting guns, people, Terminators, the Skynet of the future, the surface covered in skulls. If you've licensed the game, surely you've licensed these images, and it should be really easy just to decorate the rules. I don't know whether they're trying to keep the page count down or just wanted to get it out there for people to have a look and a playtest of without bothering to do any of that. But it really doesn't look very appealing. Although, obviously, this is not the finished game. But I just get a feeling that images lend a lot to the tone of a game. An image, what do they say? A picture paints 1,000 words. So showing somebody shooting a gun next to your gun combat rules, your range combat rules, sells it. You know what's going on. Got aiming, rate of fire, just all the standard things for ranged weapons. We've got armor damage and resistance, hit points, wounds, the hope points, and then we're into the hacking. Now, hacking, to me, there's a lot of details here, and it's a very detailed system. But it's these kind of flowcharts. Now, that was very Cyberpunk 2020, early versions of Shadowrun. And it always was something I didn't like. Now, I haven't read through these rules in detail, so perhaps they found their own way of detailing it. But just from a quick skim through and a look at the images they provide, it looks like the hacker is going to be going from node to node, taking over a system. And that was always problematic in Cyberpunk and Shadowrun, because that was something that another player was doing. So you would have your decker or hacker character going through the computer network while everybody else sat around. And because that's where their skills lay, they would generally just escort the other players as they went around shooting targets and breaking into the place which had to be hacked. It was like two separate parts of games. Now, in modern versions of Shadowrun and Cyberpunk, they've really brought it up where with wireless hacking and things, you can hack people's cyberware, you can hack vehicles, you can take control of the environment. So as well as the guy with the gun shooting an opponent, you can have your hacker decker character log into a network and, causing a distraction by flashing lights on a vehicle behind him, or starting up the engine and charging a car at him remote controlled. It enables the decker characters to take a lot more involvement in what everybody else is doing without creating this sort of other world where only they can interact with the computer network and only the people with guns interact with the real world while they're plugged in. And this looks a lot like that. But as I said, I haven't read through it in details. I'll do a rules breakdown on it at some point, and we shall see if it really does work that way. We've got a few hardware items here, so knives, heavy pistols, Uzi machine guns, assault rifles, plasma pistols, plasma rifles, and plasma repeating weapons. Then some guide into directing the game. It's not a games master, it's a director for the Terminator RPG. And then we've got at the end, 2 steps back, a one-shot scenario for the Terminator RPG, something you can get into the game with. Now, reading through the adventure just a little, it gives me the idea of the tone of the game. For example, to me, Terminators are supposed to be virtually unstoppable killing machines. But when we look at the Terminators here, in the scenario, if there are 5 or 6 players, there are 3 Terminators. If there are 3 or 4 or fewer characters, there are 2 Terminators. So basically, 2 players are supposed to be equal to 1 Terminator. Now, I don't know, that doesn't really mesh too well. The original Terminator film was about a chase using the entire environment rather than just a single skirmish and you would kill a couple of Terminators. But perhaps it's because it's in the future. But again, flicking back to the weapons, a heavy pistol does 1d10 damage, whereas a plasma pistol only does 1d10 plus 3 damage. So future weapons are only very slightly more effective, especially as Terminators here have 60 hit points. So it's going to take many, many shots to take down a Terminator. And vice versa, it's going to take a long time for a Terminator to take down a player. It doesn't seem quite right to me, but a very early version of the rules, it may change. We can see the Terminators themselves have phased plasma rifles which do 2d10 damage. Flicking through the adventure without going into any detail, we can see there's a big computer here as you're supposed to be hacking into the network for a time displacement system. But again, it seems a bit overly complex, but I need to look at the rules in more detail. Then we've got some player character templates along with short pieces of background, core characters, other characters, advanced characters, and their character sheets. Obviously very limited in special abilities because as quick start rules these do not have everything in them. So we've got special rules for Minguez. Military Mind Strategist is considered to have 1 additional skill dice when making a tactics skill roll. We've got Bassett, who's a doctor and experienced medic. Once per game session, a doctor may reroll any or all dice during a medical or forensic skill roll. Davis, engineer, may reroll when they spend a point of fate during a technical skill roll. Harper, physical training, grunt gains additional +1 modifier to success die. Tony, heightened awareness, scout is considered to have 1 additional skill dice success when making a tracking skill roll. Eva has the same. Williams is a grunt, so the +1 physical modifier. And that's the end. And that's the Terminator RPG Quick Start rules. They're a very brief look at the system. I'll go into more details as I do a rules breakdown, but I think it's quite interesting. I don't know what to make of it. I know the Aliens RPG has been very successful, and I've got friends who have that and rave about the system. So I hope they're going to make the Terminator as much detail as that. But just something I thought I'd quickly go over. As always, thank you very, very much for watching. I've been wittering on for ages about something you can download and have a look at yourself. Please like, subscribe and comment below if you like what I'm doing, as it does me massive favours with the YouTube algorithm. But, as always, most of all, you look after yourselves. And I'll catch you later. Bye now.